Creativity is definitely a sign you're intelligent, because to make something new on your own, you need to think outside of the box. Creative people rely more on the right side of the brain, which is more intuitive and visual, connected to arts, daydreaming, imagination. So if you like creating new stuff, you're definitely a smart person. Creativity is a result of genetics, something you naturally have the potential for and experience. We all have some potential to be creative at something, but we need to develop it. You like talking to yourself when doing the dishes, taking a shower, riding a bike, or doing anything where your mind wanders a little. When you talk out loud to yourself, you improve your self-control. You're curious and love exploring the world around you. It's not just gaining random skills, but a true desire to learn more about the world surrounding you and be open to new ideas, which plays a big role in cognitive growth. There's even a thing called curiosity quotient that describes the ability to learn new things about the world and make sense of them. You're messy? Wow, then I must be a genius! Psychologists did research with two groups of people, asking them to think of creative ways to use ping pong balls. The first group had to think of it in messy surroundings, while the second one was placed in a tidy setting. The first group brainstormed it better and presented outstanding ideas. It includes messy handwriting too. When others can barely read what you wrote, it means you're probably the person who does everything quickly and efficiently, and is very creative. A couple of extra IQ points go to a cluttered desk, but it's still better to tidy it every once in a while. You have a good sense of humor. One psychology study showed people who wrote funny cartoon captions and professional comedians had a higher score on verbal intelligence. Don't underrate a good joke. You have pretty good self-control. Scientists from a famous American university gave people IQ tests and offered the money they could get later or right away. Later meant a higher amount. Those who waited had higher results on IQ tests. It means when you slowly and carefully weigh your options, it means you're more intelligent. You're fine with being alone. Friends, families, parties, coffees, getting together, you enjoy it, but you also like being on your own, making plans, prioritizing, thinking, or simply enjoying time for yourself. You're good at dealing with your emotions. Sure thing, we can't always feel good. When you accept that emotions are a normal part of life, you also learn how to handle complex emotions, control your behavior, and express yourself healthily. It tells a lot about your emotional intelligence. You can handle things even when they get tough and challenging. Intelligent people can adapt to more complex and difficult situations or changes, even if everything is not the way they want it. These people respond to changes, build resilience, are not afraid to face problems, and adapt their behavior easily to get through tough times. You have a pretty good body memory. Hey, you got to that restaurant your friend was telling you about, even though you only walked to that area once, a couple of years ago, and can't explain how exactly you got there. You quickly learn some complicated dance steps after your instructor shows them once and have excellent coordination. You're present, observe details in your surroundings, remember things. You see expressions on faces surrounding you, observe how people behave without too much effort, have a good eye for patterns. Being observant can help with your creativity. Research showed left-handed people have quicker and more accurate spatial skills, better working memory, and pretty good mental flexibility. They're also great at so-called divergent thinking, which means when they think of a problem, they're open to different answers and think of multiple creative solutions. Introverts are people that avoid noisy places, big gatherings, parties, and prefer to be alone. They like to hang out with their closest friends. Research says over 75% of individuals whose IQ is over 160 are introverts. One study showed the oldest sibling in a family had IQ over 2 points higher than younger ones. The reason is not genetics, but family dynamics and environment, because the older sibling gets full attention from parents, while the younger ones are tutored by their older siblings, which requires more cognitive activity and improves intelligence. You're empathetic, which means if a friend is telling you about his problems, you're able to experience things from his perspective and get closer to how he feels. Emotional intelligence. When you can understand the feelings and experiences of people around you, it'll get much easier to identify your own traits, life values, abilities, and goals. You're open-minded and can talk to people with different points of view. You don't formulate your own opinions until you hear multiple solutions. However, once you form your point of view, you don't tend to change it, and you have good reasons for it. You can also have peaceful conversations because you can read the body language of people surrounding you, listen actively and empathetically, ask questions to understand them better, encourage them to think about other perspectives. You finish other people's sentences. It's not as creepy as it may look at first. It's a sign you do pay attention. You don't see yourself as a particularly smart person. Psychologists discovered less competent people often believe they are far smarter than others. In contrast, brilliant people don't point that out and focus on their limits and how to overcome them. Scientists did an experiment once. They asked university students to take a test in humor, English grammar, and logical reasoning. They were also supposed to predict their scores. Those who were sure they did extremely well had the worst results, unlike those who were critical of themselves. You're aware there's a lot you don't know, and you're not ashamed to admit it. Maybe you're great at math, but not so good at music or art. You often wonder about the big questions, meaning of life, the universe, future, things that are difficult to understand, which doesn't always cause positive feelings and can make you feel more worried. You procrastinate. Steve Jobs was one of the most famous procrastinators, and psychologists say that's one of the most important things to innovation. Steve would put things off, wait for new creative ideas to come to the table. Next time someone says you watch too much YouTube, just reply you're strategically procrastinating. Moving on. Alright, procrastination is not just scrolling your phone for a couple of hours per day and wasting time. It might be doing chores, taking a walk, doing some other activity where you let your thoughts wander, or even doing nothing. You learn to read early. Scientists did research with 2,000 pairs of identical twins. They realized those siblings who had learned to read earlier had better cognitive ability scores. It's because reading, especially from an early age, boosts our brain's nonverbal and verbal abilities. You love chocolate. Cocoa can help boost brain activity. Eating chocolate generally has a good effect on cognitive functions such as attention, memory, or speed of processing information, not only when you eat it, but even in the long term. You don't like background noise. Charles Darwin, Franz Kafka, and many other great minds preferred to do their work in complete silence. One study from 2015 showed the people who couldn't shut out the background noise easily ended up with more creative solutions and innovative answers on tests. Authors claim people bothered by that noise were better at focusing on multiple tasks at the same time, which required creative thinking. You like to wear the same clothes all the time. You can often see Mark Zuckerberg wearing simple clothes. The same gray t-shirt and blue jeans is his signature look. Many famous millionaires have enough money to buy the most expensive pieces, but like to focus their mental activity on more important things. You don't always want to try the hardest you can. Working 15 hours a day and generally having more things to do doesn't mean you're more effective. Your brain needs time to relax, to come up with new creative ideas. You're pretty good at puzzles. No matter how challenging they are, you like to face the problem and try to find a way to observe patterns and solve puzzles. You prefer to spend time with creative and smart people because those you hang out with the most are a pretty good reflection of your own self. As you get older, you'll get less and less time, so you better spend it on people who help you build a better version of yourself.